The night was as dark as a thick blanket, smothering everything beneath it. I was cruising down Route 66, miles away from the nearest town, and the only company I had was the hum of the engine and the occasional flicker of my headlights. The radio static hissed like a low warning, but I wasn't in the mood for music anyway. It had been a long haul from Kansas City, and I still had a few hours to go before I could park the rig for the night. But something felt off. The road was quiet, too quiet. Usually, you'd see a car or two, even at this hour, but tonight? Nothing. Just endless stretches of asphalt, black fields, and the occasional silhouette of an old barn standing like a forgotten ghost. As I shifted gears, my eyes caught something in the distance. At first, I thought it was a mirage, but as I got closer, the shape started to take form. A figure, standing alone by the side of the road. I didn't stop. You don't stop for anyone out here. Not when you're driving a truck through the middle of nowhere. The isolation can mess with your head, but I had learned long ago that you keep your focus. Keep your distance. But as I passed, something caught my eye in the rearview mirror. The figure wasn't there anymore. I slammed on the brakes. My heart started racing as I twisted the wheel, pulling off to the shoulder. I stared into the darkness, my mind trying to make sense of what had just happened. Had I really seen someone standing there? I turned the truck off and listened. The silence was so thick it felt like I could cut it with a knife. No wind. No animals. Not even the sound of the engine cooling down. Just the endless expanse of night. Then, a sound. A soft, scraping noise, like something dragging against the side of my truck. My blood went cold. I grabbed the flashlight from the dashboard, my hands trembling as I opened the door. I stepped out, my boots crunching against the gravel. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I slowly walked around to the side of the truck, the light cutting through the dark. Nothing. I was about to turn back when I heard it again. This time, closer. A low, whispering voice, almost like a chant, echoing through the night. My stomach churned, and I froze. There, at the edge of the truck, was a shadow, no longer a figure. It was something much darker, more sinister. Something wrong. I didn't wait to find out what it was. I bolted back into the truck, locking the door behind me. The engine roared to life, and I peeled out of there, not even bothering to look back. But that whisper. It stayed with me. Long after the truck had gained speed, long after I thought I was safe. And then, I saw it. A pair of headlights in the distance. The headlights were getting closer, fast. Too fast. I could hear the engine, a low rumble, coming up behind me, like it was trying to overtake me. It wasn't just a car, it was too loud, too heavy. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. Whoever was out there was driving like they were on a mission, and I wasn't sure I wanted to be the one they were after. I pushed the pedal harder, hoping to put some distance between us, but the headlights kept closing in. My heart raced with every mile. There was no one else on this road, so why the hell was someone tailing me like this? Was it a trucker, like me? Or was it something else? I glanced in the side mirror. Nothing. The headlights were gone. I blinked, trying to shake off the nerves, but then I noticed something in the mirror, just for a split second. A figure. A man. Standing in the middle of the road. No truck. No car. Just standing there. My pulse hit the roof. I slammed on the brakes, swerving to the right, narrowly missing the figure. My tires screeched as the truck skidded. The weight of the cargo in the back threw the rig into a dangerous spin. The world outside the window turned into a blur of darkness, but I fought to control it, my hands shaking on the wheel. I finally managed to get the truck back on track, my heart pounding in my ears. I glanced behind me again. No headlights. No figure. But the feeling didn't go away. It was like something was watching me, waiting for the right moment. I looked up ahead, trying to find something, anything, that would reassure me. But there was only more of the same, empty road and nothingness. That's when I saw it. A sign, faint, old, and half rotted away, flashing by. I had passed it too quickly to read, but it was enough to catch my eye. The words, "Dead Man's Curve," were scrawled across the faded wood. I hit the brakes again, slowing down now. This was the kind of road where accidents happened. Where people went missing. This wasn't just a stretch of highway, it was a part of history, dark history. And then, my headlights flickered. I cursed under my breath, fiddling with the switch, trying to get the light to stay on. But it wasn't just the lights. Everything started to go wrong. The dashboard flickered too, the lights dimming, the radio crackling to life on its own. I could hear static at first, then voices, low and barely audible, as if they were coming from the depths of the earth. And then, the whisper returned. This time, it wasn't distant. It was right in my ear. You can't outrun it. I jerked back in my seat, sweat pouring down my face. My breath came out in ragged gasps. Something wasn't right. Something was chasing me, and it wasn't a truck. I didn't know what it was, but I had to get off this road. I floored the gas pedal, the engine roaring beneath me as the truck tore through the night, desperate to escape whatever was closing in. But the road ahead, it was getting narrower. The truck's headlights barely pierced the darkness ahead, the road narrowing like a funnel. The winding path twisted and turned, taking me further into a stretch I didn't remember. The "Dead Man's Curve" sign hadn't just been a warning, it felt like a curse. I was driving on pure adrenaline now. There was no thinking, just reacting. The engine roared as I pushed harder, the truck bouncing over the uneven asphalt, my heart racing in sync with the thrum of the tires. Then the road disappeared. One moment, I was hurtling forward, the next, I was at a dead end. A cliff. The truck slid to a stop, just inches from the edge, the headlights illuminating nothing but a sheer drop. My chest tightened, panic crawling up my spine. I whipped my head around, looking for a way out, but there was nothing. The darkness behind me was closing in, a suffocating weight, and I knew I wasn't alone. I had nowhere to go. I sat there, frozen, my foot still on the brake, hands clenching the wheel so hard my fingers ached. The whisper came again. This time, louder, sharper. You thought you could run. Now you're here. With me. The cold air outside the truck seemed to seep in through the cracks, curling around me like hands. My breath fogged up the windshield as I stared into the abyss below, trying to steady myself. I could feel something out there, something watching me, something that had been following me for miles. My heart skipped a beat when I heard the soft sound of footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Not far off. I wasn't imagining it. Someone, or something, was approaching. I turned off the engine, trying to keep the sound of my own panic under control. The quiet was unbearable. The kind of quiet that pressed in on your ears until it felt like you were suffocating. Then the door of the truck opened with a sharp screech, and a gust of cold wind slapped me across the face. My eyes shot to the side. No one was there. But I could feel them. Standing right next to me. The whisper was now a full voice, a guttural, low growl that reverberated through my skull. You should have stopped when I told you. My stomach churned, and I turned, heart racing. In the shadows, I saw the figure again, the one I'd passed earlier. Standing just outside the truck, so close I could almost reach out and touch them. It was a man, no, not a man. He was tall, his skin pale as bone, and his eyes, dark pits of nothingness, stared right through me. His mouth twisted into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. He stepped closer, his shoes scraping against the gravel as he moved toward the window. I instinctively tried to slam the door shut, but my hand froze halfway, gripped by an invisible force. "You're not going anywhere," he whispered, his breath hot and rancid against the glass. And then, with a sudden jerk, the truck lurched backward. I slammed my foot on the brake, my body slamming into the seat, but it didn't stop. The truck kept moving, as if someone was steering it, except there was no one at the wheel. The truck was moving on its own. No engine roar, no sound of the tires spinning, just the eerie, unnatural glide of the rig, creeping backward, as though it were being drawn by some unseen force. I could feel the cold breath of the figure outside still lingering, and I dared not look back toward the window. My mind was screaming, but my body wouldn't move. It was as if the air itself had thickened, weighing me down, keeping me trapped in place. The truck started to pick up speed, heading in the direction of the cliff's edge. I snapped out of my paralysis, slamming my hand on the horn, but the sound was muted, distant, like it wasn't even coming from my truck. My head spun as I glanced frantically around, searching for something, anything to explain this nightmare. The truck jerked to a halt just inches from the drop. The force of it threw me forward, my head slamming against the steering wheel. Pain shot through my skull, but it didn't matter. I wasn't about to wait for whatever was coming next. That's when I heard the door creak open again. I couldn't breathe. A slow, deliberate movement. My fingers trembled as I reached for the gearshift, but before I could put the truck into drive, I felt a cold presence slide into the seat next to me. I didn't have to look to know someone, or something, was there. The air grew colder, thick with a suffocating presence. It was the same figure. He had gotten into the truck with me. I slowly turned my head, every nerve in my body screaming at me not to look, but I had no choice. He was sitting right next to me. His face was pale, unnaturally so, with deep, dark pits where eyes should have been. His lips parted in a grin, jagged and unnatural, showing teeth that were far too sharp. "I told you not to run," he whispered, the words crawling under my skin like insects. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard I thought I might break it. I was trapped. There was no escape. The road was closed, the cliff at my back, and this thing was in the seat beside me. "Who are you?" I choked out, my voice barely a whisper. His grin stretched wider, and the air around me seemed to press tighter, like the truck itself was being crushed by invisible hands. "Don't you recognize me?" he asked, tilting his head slightly, his voice almost playful, but edged with something far more sinister. I shook my head, heart pounding. I had no idea what he was talking about. "I'm the one who's been waiting for you," he said, his hand reaching out toward me. His fingers were long, impossibly so, and they brushed the back of my neck, sending a chill that numbed my entire body. The truck lurched forward again, as if it had been given a command. I tried to grab the wheel, to stop the momentum, but it was useless. We were heading straight down the road, toward the twisted forest that seemed to open up before us, the trees appearing as dark, gnarled shapes in the distance. "You've been driving through my land," the figure continued, his voice now like nails on a chalkboard. "And now, you've come too far." A cold sweat covered my body as I realized what was happening. I wasn't just being followed. I wasn't just being chased. This was some sort of trap. A place I had been lured into, and now I was stuck in the middle of it. I slammed my foot on the brake, but the truck didn't stop. It was as if I didn't even have control over it anymore. The figure beside me was watching, his face a sickening mask of amusement as we continued to hurtle forward into the unknown. "I told you," he said, his voice dripping with malice, "you can't escape what's waiting for you." And that's when I saw it. The road ahead wasn't a road at all anymore. It was a long, dark tunnel, a narrow passage between trees that stretched high above, blocking out the sky. The air grew thicker, like we were driving into the very heart of some forgotten place. I tried to scream, but the words stuck in my throat. The figure next to me just smiled, and the truck drove on. The air in the truck thickened with a palpable dread, and I could feel the temperature drop even further, freezing my skin. The dark tunnel ahead of us was like a maw, a blackened throat that seemed to stretch forever, swallowing up all light and sound. I tried to open the door, but my hand wouldn't move. It was as if my body had become an unwilling passenger in my own mind, locked in place by some force I couldn't understand. The truck was driving itself now, weaving around sharp turns in the road that should have been impossible for such a large rig to navigate. The figure beside me hadn't moved. He didn't need to. His presence filled the entire truck, suffocating me with the oppressive weight of his malevolent energy. His smile grew wider, more twisted, as if he were enjoying my terror. "You're in my world now," he whispered, his voice thick with menace. "And there's no turning back." I fought to stay conscious, my vision swimming, the overwhelming fear threatening to drown me. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to jump out of the truck and flee into the night, but I knew it would be useless. The world outside this tunnel had vanished. All that remained was the suffocating darkness and the relentless, impossible path ahead. The truck finally came to a stop, so abruptly that I was jerked forward. My seatbelt dug into my chest, but the impact didn't hurt. There was no sound, no screeching of brakes, no crash. The truck had simply stopped. I glanced around, my eyes struggling to adjust to the total darkness. The only thing I could see now was the faint, pale outline of the figure beside me, still grinning that cold, horrible grin. "You can leave, you know," he said, his voice smooth, almost coaxing. "But you'll never make it out. Not alive. You're too deep now." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My chest was tight, every breath I took felt like I was sucking air through a straw. I wanted to scream, but my voice was trapped inside me, my lips sealed in terror. "What do you want from me?" I managed to croak, my voice shaking. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel the chill radiating off his skin. "I want you to understand something," he said, his tone changing, becoming almost intimate. "This world you know, the one with its rules and its roads, it doesn't matter here. In this place, time doesn't pass. You can drive forever, and it won't make a difference. You'll never leave." The words sank deep into my mind, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. There was no escaping. No one would come looking for me. This road, this cursed tunnel, it wasn't just some strange detour. It was a place beyond the living world. I tried the truck's controls again, but the dashboard was dead, the steering wheel unresponsive. My heart pounded in my chest as panic set in. This wasn't real. I couldn't be trapped here. I had to get out. But the figure's eyes, those black pits, bored into mine, and I felt something within me break. He knew it too. I wasn't going to get out. "You're here with me now, boy," he whispered, his breath cold against my ear. "And when it's time, you'll join us." I turned, finally looking back at the tunnel behind us. But there was nothing there. No road. No world. Just a thick, suffocating blackness. I turned back to him. His grin had faded into something darker. His face twisted, and for the first time, I saw something like hunger in his eyes. Something ancient, something predatory. He reached out a hand, his fingers impossibly long, stretching toward me. I tried to pull away, but my body wouldn't move. My arms were heavy, as if they had turned to stone. And that's when I heard it, louder than ever before. The whisper. It was no longer just words. It was a chorus, coming from all around me. From inside the truck. From deep within the tunnel. "You're one of us now." The figure's hand was almost upon me, his fingers curling toward my throat. My heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat in my chest, but no matter how hard I willed my body to move, I couldn't escape his grasp. His skin was cold, and his touch sent a shock of ice through me, numbing my body, locking me in place. I could hear the voices now, clearer than ever. They weren't just whispers anymore, they were screams. Low, tortured, guttural sounds that scraped across my mind like nails on glass. There were hundreds of them, no, thousands, all chanting in unison, pulling me into their dark, twisted world. The figure's face twisted into a grotesque mockery of a smile, his sharp teeth glinting in the faint glow of the truck's dead dashboard. "Do you feel it?" he hissed. "The change? You're becoming one of us." My breath hitched as I realized the truth. I wasn't just trapped in this nightmare, I was being transformed. I could feel it in my bones, in my skin. A coldness was spreading through my body, numbing my mind, warping my senses. "No!" I screamed, my voice weak and hoarse, but the words were useless. The figure leaned in, his face inches from mine, his breath foul and rancid against my skin. "You have no choice," he said softly, his voice now a caress, even though the words were laced with venom. "Once you're here, there's only one way out, and it's not the way you think." I could feel the cold spread through my veins like poison, crawling up my limbs, seeping into my chest. My muscles began to twitch, uncontrollably at first, then, it was as if my body was moving against my will. My arms and legs jerked, my joints popping, cracking as if they were being reset, restructured. A scream built in my throat, but I could barely hear it over the chorus of voices that filled my ears, growing louder, drowning out everything else. My vision blurred, the tunnel around me warping into something else, something grotesque. The once darkened passage seemed to stretch infinitely, like an endless maw, full of eyes, mouths, and whispers, all clamoring for my attention. "Stop! Please!" I pleaded, my voice cracking, desperate, but it was no use. I was losing control of my body, my very mind unraveling as the change took hold. My hands twitched involuntarily, stretching, the fingers elongating painfully, like they were being forced into a shape they didn't belong in. I could feel my face contorting, the muscles of my jaw aching as my teeth shifted, reshaping into something jagged, something wrong. The pain was unbearable, and yet it wasn't the physical agony that terrified me the most. It was the realization that I was becoming something else, something that didn't belong in the world of the living. The figure beside me, his eyes glowing with a cold, malevolent light, leaned closer. His voice was the only thing left in my mind, a maddening echo that drowned out my thoughts. "Welcome to the end. You'll find your place soon enough," I could feel it now. The transformation was almost complete. I could feel my own identity slipping away, consumed by something darker, something ancient. My mind fought to hold on to itself, but the change was too strong, too overwhelming. And then, the truck moved again. Not by my will, but by the will of something far greater. The engine roared back to life, and the truck lurched forward, jerking me from the depths of my transformation for a split second. The tunnel stretched ahead, but this time, it was different. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the walls seemed to pulse, alive, as if the very road itself was breathing. I didn't want to look, but I had to. The tunnel was no longer just a road. It was a corridor, lined with shadowed figures, each one staring at me with hollow, soulless eyes. Their forms flickered like dying embers, some humanoid, some distorted, all of them reaching out to me, calling me to join them in their cursed existence. The truck moved faster now, as if it was part of the nightmare, the road unwillingly carrying me toward the same fate as those before me. And then I saw it. The end of the tunnel. But it wasn't salvation. It was a vast, endless field, covered in fog. A graveyard. A place where the lost souls, the ones who had disappeared, all gathered. I wasn't going to survive this. But then, something inside me fought back. The field at the end of the tunnel wasn't a place for the living. It was a graveyard of forgotten souls, stretching out endlessly, covered in thick, swirling fog. The fog felt heavier as it settled, wrapping around the truck like a shroud. It was suffocating, pulling the air from my lungs, making it harder to breathe. Every inch of the place screamed death, death of the soul, death of the mind. But there was a spark. Amidst the rising panic, as my transformation threatened to take its final hold, something deep inside me screamed out, faint but determined. A last bit of humanity fighting to survive. I wasn't ready to join whatever cursed existence these things wanted for me. I wasn't going to let this be the end. I slammed my hands against the steering wheel, my knuckles white. The figure beside me just watched, his eyes glowing faintly, a sick grin stretched across his face. "You can't win," he whispered, his voice soft but dripping with malice. "You're already here. You've crossed the line. No one ever leaves." I ignored him. I couldn't afford to listen. My head was swimming, my vision spinning, but the anger inside me started to grow, an ember that refused to be extinguished. The feeling of being trapped, of losing everything, was too much. Without thinking, I threw my foot down on the accelerator, pushing the truck forward. The engine roared to life, louder than before, as if it, too, was rebelling against the unnatural hold of this place. The truck lurched forward, the tires screeching against the dirt road, but there was no immediate release. I could see the figures in the field now, dozens of them, standing motionless like statues, their faces hollow, their eyes empty. Each one was a broken soul, caught in the same twisted prison I was heading toward. The figure beside me seemed amused by my futile attempt. "You can't outrun what's in here," he said. "It's already inside you." But I wasn't about to give in. Not now. I didn't know how, but I was going to find a way out. I had to. I focused everything on my grip, on my mind, trying to remember who I was, trying to hold on to the person I had been. I was a trucker, an ordinary man, driving the open road, living the simple life. This nightmare didn't define me. I wouldn't let it. The truck sped forward, the fog thickening, but something began to change. The figures on the side of the road started to flicker, their forms shifting, like they were trapped in the same distortion as I had been. The air felt electric, charged with an unnatural energy. The more I fought, the more the truck moved as if responding to my will. I gritted my teeth, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping the door handle. And then, a sound, a low rumbling, a growl from deep within the earth itself. The ground beneath the truck trembled as if something massive was rising from beneath. It was the thing in the field, the force that had been holding us here. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. It was coming, and it wanted me. But just as it began to emerge from the ground, a sudden, blinding light filled the truck. I threw my hands up to shield my eyes, the light so bright it was burning, but in the light, I saw something else, movement. A shadow. A figure. It wasn't the same one from before. This one was different, taller, more commanding, but not hostile. It reached out, as though it were pulling me away from the horror that surrounded me. The truck shook violently, the tires spinning out of control, but I was no longer in the driver's seat. The light surrounded me completely, and I could feel myself being pulled away from the nightmare. The last thing I saw before the light consumed everything was the figure beside me, the creature that had followed me from the beginning. His grin had turned to a snarl, his form flickering like a dying flame. And then, the world went silent. I woke up with a violent start, gasping for air, my body drenched in sweat, heart pounding in my chest. My hands shot out, grabbing anything for support, but instead of the cold, metallic grip of the truck's steering wheel, I found myself gripping the edge of a bed, soft, familiar, and completely different from where I had been moments before. I blinked, disoriented. The room around me was dimly lit, with the faint glow of early morning sunlight filtering through the blinds. It was a small hotel room. The kind I'd stayed in hundreds of times while on the road. But this felt wrong. I quickly looked around, half expecting to see shadows moving in the corners, figures lurking at the edges of my vision. But there was nothing. Just the ordinary hum of a quiet motel room. The sound of my breath, still too fast, too shallow. Had it all been a nightmare? The relief that flooded through me was almost overwhelming. The terror, the creatures, the tunnel, it all seemed so far away, like some twisted dream. I reached up and touched my forehead, the coolness of my skin a reminder that I was here. I was safe. But there was something I couldn't shake. A lingering feeling that something had followed me back from that place. I pushed myself up from the bed, shaky on my feet, but determined to shake off the remnants of fear. I walked to the small bathroom and splashed my face with cold water, trying to ground myself in reality. When I looked up into the mirror, I froze. The reflection staring back at me wasn't quite right. There was something off. My eyes were darker, deeper than they had ever been before. And the faintest trace of a grin lingered at the corners of my mouth, a grin I hadn't made. I recoiled, my pulse racing once more. It wasn't just a nightmare. I had escaped, yes, but the change wasn't gone. The whispers returned, faint but persistent, like a soft hum at the back of my mind. You'll never truly leave. I turned quickly, heart racing, but the room was empty. No one was there. The truck was still parked outside, and I knew I had to keep moving. The fear was real. The transformation, that was real. But now I understood. This wasn't just a cursed road, a forgotten nightmare. It was something worse. A trap. And I had walked straight into it. I wasn't just a victim. I was a part of it now. The road, the figure, the whispers, they had claimed me. I grabbed my keys, not daring to look back into the mirror again. I needed to drive, to escape. But I knew the truth now. There was no real escape. The road would always be waiting. The whispers would always be there, just beneath the surface, calling me back to where it all began. But I would keep moving. I would keep driving. Because as long as I kept going, there was a chance, a faint, flickering chance, that I might outrun the darkness. But deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time. And so, with a final, lingering glance at the empty, still room, I stepped out into the early morning light, the sound of my footsteps the only thing breaking the silence. But it wasn't really over. Not yet.